Have you ever gotten to the end of the day and you're just completely wiped out? Not because you ran a marathon, but because you've been running in circles inside your own head? Yeah, if that sounds familiar, you're in exactly the right place. We're about to dive into the psychology of a mind that just thinks a little, or a lot, too much. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's that specific kind of tired that comes from replaying conversations on a loop. From mapping out a million different scenarios that will probably never happen. And lying awake at 2 a.m. with that dreaded question, what if? It's a feeling so many of us know all too well, and that really gets us to the big paradox we're going to explore. How is it that the very thing that makes a person so careful, so empathetic, and so considerate is the exact same thing that can just quietly drain all their energy? It's a puzzle, right? So let's unpack it. Okay, so first up, let's look at what's actually going on in the brain, because this constant mental chatter, it isn't just some vague feeling. It actually has a name in psychology, and there's a really clear reason for why our brains get stuck in this mode. The clinical term for this is maladaptive rumination. Now, I know that sounds pretty heavy, but all it really means is getting stuck. It's the brain's habit of getting caught in these thought loops, just circling the same drain over and over about something that happened or something you're worried about without ever really getting anywhere. And here's something that's so important to hear. Based on research from places like Yale and Michigan, this is not a weakness. It's actually the opposite. It's a sign that you have a brain that is incredibly good at scanning for patterns and trying to make sense of things. The problem isn't the brain's power. It's just that it never gets the memo that it's okay to power down. So if we look under the hood, there are 2 key parts of your brain working overtime. You've got your prefrontal cortex. Think of it as your brain's CEO, always planning, analyzing, and strategizing. And at the exact same time, you've got this thing called the default mode network, which is kind of like the brain's narrator. It's what creates that internal monologue. When both of these are always fired up, you get a mind that's basically always online. So where in the world does this habit even come from? Well, for a lot of people, this isn't something that just pops up out of nowhere in adulthood. It's often a really clever survival strategy that your brain learned way, way back in your earliest experiences. You can actually map it out. So imagine growing up in an environment that felt kind of unpredictable. A young brain trying to feel safe comes up with a perfectly logical defense mechanism. If I can just anticipate everything, nothing will catch me off guard. It's a brilliant strategy for a kid. The only problem is that it can become an automatic default setting in adulthood. And I really want you to let this reframe sink in. Overthinking doesn't mean you're broken. It's actually proof of a very intelligent nervous system that did exactly what it needed to do to keep you safe in a world that once felt really uncertain. It's actually a sign of your brain's incredible ability to adapt. Okay, so if it's such a smart strategy, why does it feel so exhausting so much of the time? Well, that brings us to what we could call the thinking trap. It's the reason it's so hard to just snap out of it, because, not all of that thinking feels bad. You see, psychologists break it down into 2 types. On one hand, you've got reflective rumination. This is the good stuff. This is introspection, self-awareness, trying to figure things out. It's a real strength, but it can so easily slip into what's called brooding rumination. And that's when you're just dwelling on the problem, feeling stuck, and it's just draining your battery without getting you any closer to a solution. And most overthinkers are constantly shifting between these 2. This leads to what cognitive psychologists call the illusion of mental progress. It's the super tricky feeling that because your brain is so busy, you must be making progress. It feels like you're on the verge of figuring it all out, when in reality, you're just spinning your wheels in the same mental mud. And get this, there's a chemical reason for this trap. When your mind starts analyzing a problem, your brain releases a tiny little hit of dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical. So the act of thinking itself starts to feel rewarding. Your brain doesn't get the reward for solving the problem, it gets it just for thinking about it, and that chemically reinforces the loop, which is why when someone tells you to just stop thinking about it, it's pretty much impossible advice. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges. I get it. It can be tough. But there is a huge, profound upside to all this mental activity. So let's pivot. because we need to talk about the unexpected superpower that's often hiding inside the overthinking mind. And this is backed by some pretty incredible research. A study back in 2013, published in the journal Psychological Science, found this really powerful connection. People who tended to ruminate more also scored way higher on tests for cognitive empathy. So what does that mean? It means the exact same mental machinery that can wear you out is also what gives you these incredible gifts. A busy mind is often way more sensitive to social cues, more tuned into the emotional vibe of a room, and just deeply aware of how other people are thinking and feeling. It's a powerful, powerful asset. But here's the rub. Here's the core conflict that so many overthinkers live with every single day. Having all this incredible perception, noticing every little thing, feeling the weight of every possibility, is absolutely exhausting when you can't find a way to resolve it or let it go. So what do? The way forward isn't about declaring war on your own mind or trying to force it to be quiet. It's actually about something much gentler and, frankly, a lot more effective. It's about changing your relationship with your thoughts. And a fantastic tool for this comes from a type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. It's called cognitive defusion. It's this simple but not always easy practice of just observing your thoughts as thoughts. They're just little events happening in your mind. They aren't necessarily facts. You can notice the thought loop without having to jump on the ride. Here's exactly what that shift feels like. A fused thought is, this situation is dangerous. It feels like a hard fact, right? But a diffused thought sounds more like, my brain is generating a concern right now. Can you feel the difference? That little bit of language creates just enough space. You aren't the thought. You're the one who's noticing the thought. And that's really the whole game right there. The goal isn't to get to some magical place where your mind is perfectly silent. I'm not even sure that's possible. The goal is just to change the dynamic. It's to dial down the volume and reduce the power these thought loops have over you in your life. It's about taking back the driver's seat. So I just want to leave you with this. One last question to chew on. What if the real goal here isn't to fight your brain or to shut it up? What if the real work is to finally, gently teach that incredibly active, super smart, and deeply protective mind that it's finally safe enough to get some rest?